Welcome to Scottish Watches podcast. It is that time where we release information on our latest limited edition creation. This is something we've talked about in the show for a number of weeks. We've kind of teased it for months behind the scenes. There's lots of things been happening. As we know, things don't always go according to plan, but we do have with us two gentlemen that are definitely going to right this ship if it goes the wrong direction. We've obviously got Dave, not in Switzerland, he's here, but we do have one person in Switzerland. Dave, do you want to introduce who that is?
Who do we have in Switzerland? Actually, not that far away from where I am when I'm normally in Switzerland, and that is Raphael from Formex. Say hello, Raphael.
Hello, everybody.
Well, the real reason that we do have Raf from Formex with us is our latest creation is out. It's out in the open today. We have been working on a collaboration watch for, I would say, coming up 2 years. It was 2 years ago that I met Raf over at Geneva Watch Days. We went out for some drinks and some good food, and we kind of talked about things. We've been working together behind the scenes. We've been talking about the releases. We've done some reviews. We've actually had some giveaways and whatnot over the past 3 to 4 years. And we thought, well, why have we never done a limited edition collaboration watch? Because the technology's good, the price point is even better. With our crazy ideas mixed with his crazy ideas and the rest of the team over at Formex, I'm sure we could come up with something quite ingenious. And we involved Dave, we involved another person, an actual listener to the show, and adding all these cooks in the kitchen. You would think that things would just go completely to pot, but it didn't. It worked out. All these little things that we're going to explain about our latest creation, they'll probably blow you away, because when we got the prototypes through and we got the final release through, which we're wearing today, there's nothing we could think of to actually make it any better. But we should probably just get straight into it, no BS, and tell you about the watch. That's probably why most people are here. They want to find out what we've been up to. So the first thing to do is to tell you the story of how it all came to be. I've explained, we met up a couple of years ago. I would say the real key to the design and everything else that happened was 1 year ago when Dave organised Global Red Bar. And we actually had it in Edinburgh, literally beside Edinburgh Castle. You could look out the window and the castle filled the entire scape. We sat down with the folks from Formex, obviously Raf is in charge down there, and we started seriously coming up with some ideas. And some of the ideas we hit upon, they were great in theory, they didn't quite work out in practice, but by mixing everything together, we came to something that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I really liked the part where we worked together, brainstormed, you guys with some crazy ideas. I tried to add some ideas. Then the part where we actually had to try all this stuff out turned out to be a pretty long process. So we started talking in Edinburgh. When was that? In October last year, 23. Concretely talking about it. And then I showed you something during Watches and Wonder early this year in Geneva. Only now are we ready to shoot pictures and talk about it. So it was a pretty long process because we tried some stuff that we hadn't tried before, which we're probably going to talk about a bit later. So there was a lot to be learned by us, especially our dial manufacturing in the Jura Mountains, so which is actually led by my uncle. So the company is part of our family business. We manufacture mostly high-end dials for other brands there, and of course all of the Formex dials. This is why we like to dabble and try out new things with dials so much, because we can. And it's really fun and close, and it's not the classic way where you work with a supplier that's maybe not that close, and not only geographically, but I'm actually picking up the phone, talking to my uncle, which is always nice when we do product development in dials. So it was definitely a very enriching process.
Raf's family seem to run the Willy Wonka experience of Switzerland. They do everything to do with luxury watches, bracelets, clasp technology. That's two things that will play a key role in what we talk about today with this watch. And as we've mentioned for years and years on the show, whenever we get a new Formex release through to talk about, it's almost as if you get the latest technology that all these massive brands charge massive amounts of money for. We're talking tens of thousands up to hundreds of thousands, but because Formex are dealing with it, it's almost like a skunkworks project. You get the latest and greatest tech, but at a bargain price, which is always great because it means you can buy more watches. But let's chat about the release itself. This is based on the Essence range, which has been out for a number of years. The first thing, Raf, to take us through is the actual Essence. What is involved in this watch?
So the Essence was the first watch that we used to relaunch the brand. Actually, a couple of years after I had taken over the brand. I took those years to study the market, didn't really do that much. And then we relaunched the brand with a Kickstarter. And that is when we launched the first edition or the first version of the Essence. So it was a 43 millimeter case, which was a pretty successful launch, but we quickly found out that people are screaming for smaller diameters.
You'll be happy about that, Dave.
Something that you both hear every day, but not as much as we do. So whenever we launch something, usually the first comment isn't, it looks nice. The first comment is, can you make this smaller? So then pretty soon after that, actually probably a year or 1.5 years after that, we launched the 39 millimeter version, which pretty much took off like a rocket ship. Yeah, I got to explain why 43, because Formex watches, for those of you guys who know what the brand was doing before we came in, Formex comes from the two French words forme extrême, so extreme shape. They were very industrial looking designs, quite chunky watches. Yeah, so I couldn't jump to a 38, 39 millimeters straight from that. I didn't want to, shock the previous owners of Formex watches too much. So we gradually came to something a bit more wearable. Less height, less diameter, short lug to lug, very wearable in terms of comfort. And we also blended in an element of elegance. Yeah, kind of classic codes of watchmaking, definitely some steel sports watch vibes as well. So yeah, this is the Essence because we meant it as the essence of the brand. So when we actually launched the watch, we named it Essence because it was kind of back to the essential, a three-hand, very wearable, elegant yet sporty watch, and that would hopefully build the foundation of Formex 2.0.
So you mentioned that this watch is really building on the history of the brand at the point where you took over it. So what kind of features in terms of specifications? Was there anything specific about materials? Obviously, you talk a little bit about design language, but in terms of materials, sizes, what were the key things that you felt you had to kind of carry over from the brand previously to the brand that we know as today?
So one very obvious takeover was, or one very obvious item we took over was the case suspension system. You see it from the front of the Essence models. You don't see it from the side anymore. Back in the day, you could actually see a opened up case back on the side and you could see the dampers working like a car suspension. And so we took that over. This is something that the founders of Formex invented and patented. And they founded the brand around that, really. They were really big car nuts and motorsports enthusiasts. And that's why they wanted to bring in an element of real motorsports for your wrist. So you got a shock absorber, a case suspension that kind of moves. It's built like a case inside of an outside case. I'm sure Ricky is going to show us later how it works on our new model. It works as a shock absorber, but on the wrist, on our newer watches especially, so the Essence and everything that came after, it really works as a feature that offers added comfort on the wrist, because it will ever so slightly give a little bit when you move the wrist and make it more comfortable, or make a comfortable watch even more comfortable.
So let's maybe get a bit more involved in the spec of the Scottish Watches collaboration watch with Formex.
So our collaboration watch is based on the Essence 39 in steel. So it's a steel case. It features our suspension system that we mentioned. It's driven by, the hands are driven by a Sellita SW200, which we had already opted for when we launched the first Essence, but we opted to take the highest decorated version. So you got the perlage finish, you got the heat blued screws, you have a skeletonized rotor that we produce ourselves, and obviously the movement is chronometer certified by COSC.
Individually COSC certified as well, I believe, so everyone will get their little certificate with it to say how well specified it is.
That is correct. So all the movements went through the 15 days process at COSC, where it gets tested in different positions.
Doggy?
Also, but mostly missionary. And then it gets tested in 3 different temperatures as well. So it can get quite hot.
Well, it is a hot release, so I think we've done enough of the BS, all the mechanical movement tech, the size of the case and all the rest of it. It's time to talk about what makes this one different. And we should probably introduce the person that's not here because he refuses to answer phone calls, text messages, and emails. And that is Matt Webster, somebody who's been listening to the show for as long as I can remember producing the show, because I have a very bad memory. But he's the guy that every time there is some kind of accolade, maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's a release X 100, maybe it's a year, he will send us something. Like an example would be, he sent us a birthday card when we had our 4th birthday. That was a good couple of years ago. And on it, there is lots of custom watch parts. So in the first look, it just looks like a cake on a card. But there are palette forks, there are jewels and rubies and all kinds of things, and a very nice message inside from Matt too. One of the things that's going to become apparent is Lume and ultraviolet technology with this watch. And another thing that Matt did for us for episode 400, as we come up to episode 600, he created the custom design on a little Peli case. He did one for me, one for Dave, and because I'm more into Star Trek than Dave, I got the Vulcan shocker on the back. But this here has got Lume on the front, so when the lights turn off, this glows in the dark, and that is something that we carried on to the actual watch itself.
Yeah, so another reason why we opted for Lume is, well, there's actually many reasons. One of them is when we first met in Geneva, I actually asked you if Ricky was your real name. And you said, no, actually, that was my DJ name, and it just kind of stuck. So I asked you what kind of DJ you were. So maybe you want to enlighten the audience about that.
Not a very good one, or I'd still be doing it to this day. But no, I got into DJing back in the hardcore era, and I'm talking about music, not movies. So I had a manager back in the day, sort of late 90s, 2000s, and I just used the name Rick, R-I-C-K. And my manager went, no, we need something a little bit better than that. And here in Scotland, there was a comedian called Ricky Fulton. Folks in the country probably know exactly who I'm talking about. I don't know if his comedy travelled the globe. I hope it did. So my manager went, well, why don't we take the spelling of his name, which is R-I-K-K-I, and we'll use that. So it kind of stuck, and I've never really changed it since. That's one of the reasons. And obviously I've been involved with music and DJing, and then in later life, covering events, doing videography and whatnot. I was always in and around black lights. But Matt, unfortunately, cannot be here with us today, so we're just going to have to show you and go through the process of the design. And what is the most standout feature that we should talk about, Raf?
Obviously, if you're wearing the watch, the most standout feature of this one is going to be the dial. So it's an aventurine dial, which was actually something that you wanted to do. So we had never done one, and so we got into that. When we talked about it, it was this time where you could see the Northern Lights everywhere.
Well, that's an ongoing thing, because for the past few months in the UK, it's constantly in the news. I attempted, knowing fine well that the release was coming out, to go and get some video footage and some pictures, and it turned out where I was, that was never going to happen. But yeah, that was a big theme too.
So exactly. That's also a reason why, for instance, the Lume is different from 10 to 2. You got green Lume in there, whereas on the other indices you have the blue or BGW9. And yeah, when you shine the Lume torch and then go away, you will see that different Lume that represents the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. One other cool thing that you see when you actually shine, when you charge up the Lume and use that little handy and beautiful Lume torch that is provided with the watch, you will actually see that there are additional stars on the dial that you can only see with the Lume light. And yeah, so slowly but surely everything came together. We wanted to talk about the Northern Lights. We wanted some UV team, which we had never done before. So there was a lot of R&D going on and learning on our side, and failing also, because you remember there were quite a couple of times where you didn't hear much from us during 3 weeks. And then only to hear that, yeah, it didn't work. We need to try something else. One of them being the castle that you will discover on the backside, on the case back crystal, actually. This is something we wanted to connect with Scottish. Well, what is something that reminds you of Scotland? Where in Scotland can you actually see the Aurora Borealis? And so we decided to find a castle that represents that place. So you can find these stars when you shine the UV light on, and something else you can only see with the UV light is on the case back. So the glass features a very nicely drawn castle, drawn by Matt, which we mentioned before. That came to be because I was talking about North Coast 500 by motorcycle.
That's correct. And the North Coast 500, it takes you on the outer limits, I suppose, of Scotland, right up to the Highlands. And the way that we do it motorcycle is we don't just do the 500 one to the other, we also come back the way. So we see both sides, left and right. And on the way up there, we pass by Skye. And that is a very familiar tourist attraction in Scotland. And like Rafa said earlier on, it's a place that when the Aurora Borealis is visible, you can see it very well. So we had to think about things, and obviously the themes that we do at Scottish Watches, although we're recorded in Scotland, we're enjoyed across the world, we like to pay it back. If we have a release in the past, we've done the Highlander, we've done the Braveheart, and we wanted to keep that theme going. And because Skye is a great place for people to go, loads of folks who come across from America to see us have visited there, I thought, yeah, that's probably the best idea for it. It ties everything together. And that castle that you're talking about there, this wasn't just a throwaway exercise with Matt. He spent months, from about December all the way through to around about April time, months and months, coming up with designs. He is so intricate with what he does that the designs he created, they didn't transfer properly. When we talk about problems creating the watch, it was because it was too good. The fidelity of his drawings just did not translate into ink because of the process that's obviously used to stamp things onto the case back. But we got there finally, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you will be seeing all the clips popping up as we're talking about the different technologies, and you'll see how this is. And the best part is, it's almost an Easter egg. If somebody looks at the case back, they're going to peer through it, they're going to see that movement with the heat-treated blue screws, they're going to see the perlage, the decorated movement, the rotor that's been finessed. But if they have a UV torch, which obviously comes in the box, then you just click it on and it's almost like a movie. It's almost like a special effect, a VFX, the way that the castle and the starscape on the back pops up. And as we showed on the front, you've got the aventurine glistening in the daylight, you pop the UV on, and you have a completely new look to things too.
And we should maybe mention a little bit more about Matt. Why is Matt so good at drawing? Well, it turns out that Matt is an extremely accomplished tattoo artist, and he has taken those skills that he has used every day of his working life doing tattoos, and he's also produced some cards, birthday cards that we've had. Obviously, there's this drawing of the castle, but over the last few years, he's also been very kind. When I unfortunately lost my dog a few years ago, I suddenly got an amazing drawing of a kind of mission patch. He knows that I like space, and I suddenly through the post got this amazing picture that he had drawn. And he even got in cahoots with Ricky and a other individual, and I ended up with a custom watch with a dial with a little tiny hand-painted drawing of my dog on there. He is an extremely accomplished artist.
One thing we want to stress is that there are people out there, there are brands out there, there are media organisations that will create limited editions like they're going out of fashion. We tried to do a couple per year, and this is the first one of this year. It should have come out early. We did talk about it and the fact that there were some problems, but we didn't want to crowdstrike it. We wanted to make sure that when this got released, it was going to be right. We didn't want the Lume flaking off or the coating separating or something stupid like that. Everything is as it should be, thankfully, and it's been through a rigorous process. So this didn't come out start of June, it's coming out end of July, but it is the first of our limited editions of the year, and I am so happy the way it has turned out because it was up to the wire. I remember we met up at Watches and Wonders in Geneva because you said, I want to take you guys out for some food and I'll show you the progress. And the progress wasn't quite where we wanted to be.
Yeah, it was nowhere near to what I wanted to show you. So it was an aventurine plaque still mounted onto the brass platform that we use for manufacturing. So we were just really playing around with the UV resin. So it's a UV resin that we use that you're not supposed to see when you're not shining a UV torch onto it. So it's something we never played around with before. So we really had to learn how to use it in production processes and how we could make it so you didn't see the things we didn't want you to see when you don't use UV light. So definitely weren't where we wanted to be when we last met, but we caught up a little bit in the past couple of months. But it was a longer process. So it took about 8 months to get this on point, and now we're ready for launch.
We could have thrown in the towel and just said, you know what, let's just release it because we've not done an aventurine dial before. You guys haven't done it. We've got the coloured rehot. We've got the crystalline structure on the date disc. There's loads of things. It's fine. We can have the coloured Lume. We'll get away with it. But we decided to be complete idiots and keep going with the project to deliver something that we were going to be exceptionally proud of. And we definitely have now. Well, now we've explained the party pieces, we've shown you what we're talking about, it's probably time to explain more about the behind the scenes of the company and the creation process because, again, like I mentioned, some brands, all they do is a dial, change colour, a new bezel, and then there's a limited edition release. We don't. When we work with brands, it's brands that we know, it's people we trust, because we also don't want to put our name to something where it's going to negatively affect us, because if there's any negativity, it's me and Dave that will cause it personally. These guys here at Formex, they do such great things because they have everything in-house. There aren't many companies out there that I can think of that can say they have an in-house dial manufacturer. Maybe Anordain, because they're specialised in one thing, but they do about 5 watches a year from what I can tell, and massive waiting lists. The guys at Formex, they have got it all. They've got the patented Clasp technology, which is not on the bracelet. The bracelet has a crazy different adjustment that I will show in a second. But you can choose this watch. That's the other thing. You can spec it up. You can have it on the bracelet, which I think looks best. You can have it on a rubber. You can have it on leather. Different colours are available. And the clasp that comes with the bracelet has got this patented micro adjust. Not where you have to take the watch off and play around with it and put it back on and it's not quite right. Off it comes again. One extra connection. This can be done on the wrist. So do you want to quickly tell us about that?
The clasp allows you to micro adjust while the watch is on the wrist. You don't even have to open the clasp. If you want to tighten it, you just pinch the strap part with the holes and slide it into the clasp. It will ratchet in 6 positions. So it gives you a micro adjust of about 7 millimeters, or actually exactly 7 millimeters, which corresponds to the distance between 2 holes. So you can actually cover the whole distance between 2 holes on the strap to micro adjust. And if you need some more space or if it's too tight, you just press the left pusher that is on the side of the F and it will release that. So you can just press and pull and it will release everything while the clasp is closed on your wrist. It's a super light clasp because the body and pushers are made of carbon fiber and the clasp head is made out of steel like your watch.
And I think it's fair to say that this is one of the most comfortable deploying clasps that you will find on the market. Obviously, there is a huge variety out there, but not so many that are both small, compact, lightweight, and have a full 7 millimeters of adjustment and done so easily whilst the clasp is closed. I think it's very fair to say that this is an extremely highly spec deploying clasp to be fitted on a Formex watch. Many watches at much higher prices have much more inferior clasps.
Another thing to mention about the clasp is that the surplus strap that actually is behind the hole, so whatever you don't need in length of the strap, will pass under the strap. So you don't have, even under the clasp, so you don't have any keepers. You don't have that annoying problem of keepers sliding off the surplus strap. And also the advantage of the clasp not actually touching your skin. So it's very comfortably sandwiched between the 2 strap parts. And then obviously you can change the straps on the watch, but our straps have a quick release spring bar even on the clasp side. So you'll need one clasp, then you can mix it up with different strap styles, strap materials, and you can just change it on the strap sides with the simple quick release spring bar.
And I think that little point you mentioned seems like a small point, but for me, quite a big one. Changing out straps these days for many watches is relatively easy with quick release spring bars, but not so many have that quick release location where it's attached to the clasp, which means even though you can quickly get the strap off your watch, many times you have to still reach for that spring bar tool to get the clasp off to change it over. But on these, very easy to do, just with your little fingernails, and you can change it out, as Raf says, for any strap that takes your fancy that day.
And one thing to note on the bracelet is it's got a different type of technology. It has got a little extension there that if you're getting a little bit hot and bothered, because it is the summer after all, then this extends out like this. And if I press it round the back, that is what it looks like when it is not extended out. So it hides away absolutely perfectly. It doesn't jut out and nip in. And then it's just a quick case of pulling it back to get the extension there. So great technology. And again, all this stuff here, we're not talking costing an extra 500,000 euros for the privilege of having something cool on the wrist or under the wrist, as it turns out. This is all part of the fantastic Formex system. You get all this technology for a budget, pocket-friendly price. Should we talk about the price of the watch, Dave?
Well, before we talk about the price of the watch, what we should talk about is that dial.
But there's more.
We've already mentioned its aventurine, which is a glass vitreous-like substance. We've mentioned that it's got illumination to it and you can get the stars coming out, but this is a material that, because it is a vitreous glass style structure, this is not the easiest dial material in the world to work with. And as if our life was not difficult enough with this whole project, we decided to use a really difficult material to make dials out of. So maybe tell us a bit more about the complications and technicalities of working with this material for dials.
So over the past years, we've become somewhat specialized in manufacturing stone dials, which is always a challenge because you got a very fragile material that you need to pierce and mill and machine and flatten and then finish. And also in the last year, you've seen a lot of releases of different brands with a stone dial, so they've definitely become very popular again. But in the essence, since it has a very slim case profile, it's only 10.4 millimeters high. Obviously, the dial can't be 1 millimeter thick like it could normally be, like it should be for enamel dials, for instance. So we have to work around that. You always need to use a brass base, and then stone or the vitreous material. And then each of the indexes on the dial actually have 2 feet. So our indexes are not simply stickered onto there or glued, but each index requires 2 holes drilled into that very fragile material. And then we mill out the rectangular dial window, on which we apply an applied date window with either a matched date disc, or like in this case, it's actually a very rare case of us not matching the dial color with the date disc, because the date disc was also specifically manufactured for this with this very grainy structure on it. So these are obviously things that you'll only see when you look very closely. And when you do that, you're also going to see the finishing of the indexes. So the index has a brushed finish on this very, very small surface on top that is flat, and then it's diamond cut. So it's black polished, very, very shiny on the bevels. And this is a finishing theme that you find all throughout the watch. So you got the brushed bracelet with a very thin sliver of polished bevel that just makes the light play and makes the case and the bracelet and every single detail of the watch come alive in different lighting conditions. So one thing that is always on our task list when we create new dials is we want to make them come alive in different lighting conditions, because it is something that you're going to look at a lot of times. You're going to look at it in details, and we want our customers to be able to rediscover new little features, new color tones, angles of the finishing they've never seen when the light hits just right.
Should we tell people how difficult it is to make these dials? Because we do go on about enameling and the fact that maybe for every 100 dials that you make, 60 of them go in the bin, 70 of them go in the bin. How difficult is it with aventurine?
In aventurine dials, it's about 30 to 45%. In other dials we've made, especially for the larger sizes. So we mostly came out with stone dials on the 39 millimeter size, but we started doing them on the 43 for the larger wristed people out there who were asking for it. It turned out it was much higher there because there's more surface, but it's not necessarily thicker in terms of material you can put on there. So it gets up to the 60s actually. So it's that's why it's so complicated. Sometimes they break while we assemble them. Once they're in there, they're not going to break anymore. You would have to, hit it very hard to the point where the movement is probably going to give in first.
Thankfully, there's a suspension system to take care of that.
There is. And so sometimes they break during assembly, which is very annoying because all the value has been added on the piece. And obviously, when we break them here, nobody's going to, refund us. So we got to kind of factor in a certain amount of breakage. Luckily, during final assembly, there is not that much breakage anymore, and we've also specialized and have actually manufactured supports and not your regular encasing pillow, not your regular gel pan where you can put on the dials to put it on the movement. So yeah, a lot of R&D has gone into the actual assembly of such fragile dials.
And I think that's a good point that you bring up there that's more applicable to a lot of watches and a lot of brands is people often love to count the pennies when it comes to why is my watch a given price. And this is one of those hidden areas of watchmaking that people don't maybe know, that a huge number of dials, for example, might have to be manufactured just to get 20 good ones. And that, of course, is all cost. And that's something that people forget that has to be factored into why watches are the price they are. Now, that brings us round, Ricky, to the point you wanted to make. The cost of this watch.
But there's more, Dave. There's more. I'm going to do my Billy Mays. Before we get on to the price, we've told you about the watch. You've seen that. You know all about that. You know about the dial. You know about the aventurine. You know about the different coloured lume plots. You know about the UV coating that only lights up with the included UV torch. Scottish Watch's colour scheme there. We know about that crystalline structure on the date disc. We know about the suspension system, COSC, the water resistance, the custom work that has been done on the bracelet, that little baby micro adjust. We know when I pop it off the wrist. We look at the back, you have got that glorious movement. It is the best version. It is the one with all the bells and whistles. And again, if you use the UV torch, you will see on the back the castle illuminating. So you get all that. But even in the box, you get probably the best little screwdriver that has got the Formex name on it just at the side. So you can resize the watch yourself. You don't have to take it to your local jeweler. You don't have to buy any bits and bobs off Amazon. Everything you need is in the box.
I do you one better, Ricky.
Oh, can you? Can you do me one better?
When you actually order the watch, we ask for your wrist size. And that is because we adjust everything out of the box. So all of the bracelets are adjusted to your wrist size. This is not necessarily only to be of great service, but it also prevents people from messing up the screws, messing up the links, and then having to have to do a back and forth with our customer service. So yeah, we include that. So we adjust all the bracelets. So you do still get the screwdriver because Christmas is just around the corner, and you might need a link more in there after December. So you can do that yourself.
So you get all this in the box. Now, if we were to tell you this was £20,000, you'd bite our hands off. If we were to tell you it was £10,000, you would think we were insane. But Raf, how much is this fantastic limited edition 1 of 100 pieces watch going to cost people?
So I'm going to tell you the euro price. Everything is actually included when you buy it from our website. So to most countries that are going to listen to us here, your taxes, your duties, your import, everything is being done by Formex and included in the price you check out. If it's not the case, you can prepay the taxes. If you're from a country where we don't do that, you can actually prepay them separately. In US dollars and euros, it's $19.90 on the metal bracelets and $18.90 on the rubber or leather strap. And in pounds, that would be $17.50 and $16.50 respectively.
So I think it's fair to say a little bit of a bargain, considering all of the work, the effort, the technology, and the new techniques that have been developed, all put together in one package of this watch, which all can be had. And as Ricky mentioned, very subtly, only 100 pieces of this watch will be made available. So Ricky, the other big important question, aside from how much it is when can people start to place their credit card details on a website?
Today, right now. Act fast. They're going like hotcakes, I'm pretty sure. No, today is the launch day. We tried our best to get it out within June. Wasn't going to happen. July, we got it right down at the wire to the vinegar strokes, if anyone knows what that means. And we have got it out on the last possible day of July for a July release. So you can go to the Formex website. All the details will be in the podcast description. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be in the show notes. We may even have a specific article on the Scottish Watches website for it. Plus, obviously, it'll be on Formex's Instagram, their website, our Instagram. Just Google for it. Scottish Watches Formex, or click the link in the description and it'll take you directly to it. Hopefully, There will be one left or two left, depending if you want to get one for you and your partner by the time you listen to this or you watch the video. But considering we have told a few select people ahead of time, we've not shown them any prototypes because we only got the prototypes completed recently for release today. But there has been a drastic amount of people interested in this watch. So fingers crossed there will be a few left by the time you check it out. It's our last limited edition. I think it sold out in less than 12 hours.
Indeed it did. It did not hang around for very long, and I think I'm going to say it. I think of all of the limited editions that we've done, which of course we love all of our children equally, but secretly we all have a favourite child, don't we? That's all I'm going to say.
I just want to say thank you, Raf, for all the time, the energy, the crazy expense that Formex has gone, and you personally, time and monetary wise, to develop these new technologies, to trial them, to test them, to make sure that they actually work properly. Because as I said, the last thing we want to do is anyone to be unhappy, because we're watch enthusiasts and collectors first and foremost. Before we started the podcast, before we started YouTubing, and we would hate it if we were to buy something that was the latest and greatest and it just failed, it didn't work. So all the time that's gone in, it is totally appreciated. And a big shout out to Matt, who can't be with us today because he doesn't answer his phone.
Thank you, Ricky, Dave, and Matt for this really fun process, because so we had obviously had a WhatsApp group where we exchanged photos, drawings, files, and quite a few jokes. So it was always fun to see that group light up and see some advancements on this new watch. So thank you very much for all of this. And also, it's always fun to hang out with you guys and meet you in person.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Raf. But I think, unfortunately, that is us drawing to the end of a show. So we have to say the obvious. Don't DM us, send us emails. If you want to know more about everything we've been talking about today, drop us an email at info@scottishwatches.co.uk and we can let you know everything. But of course, you should also be checking out the show notes.
Yeah, actually, I got one last thing to say. So this is the first launch. As Formex customers and friends know that we usually, when we do a launch, we give our members of the Formex Watch Club, our newsletter subscribers, we give them a 24-hour head start to order this, to order the new launch. And we actually didn't do it for the first time in our history for this launch. Very sorry, Formex Watch Club and our subscribers, but we couldn't do it because we really wanted everyone to be able to get a chance to get one of these only 100 pieces.
To kind of meet in the middle there, we agreed to release the podcast one day early. So it's coming out on the Wednesday, coinciding with the launch. So it's almost meeting in the middle. But I know that the guys on the waiting list there and on the newsletter, they will be getting an email to say, check out this show in the morning if you're interested in what we're up to. So I think that kind of covers it. And Dave, you said there's anything left for me to say? There isn't. Thank you for listening to this episode. I want to thank you for watching, for listening, for taking an interest in what we've been up to. This is coming into our 7th year. It was nearly 7 years ago, the idea of Scottish Watches, the website, the community, the Instagram, the Facebook page, and the podcast came to be. And it's been a roller coaster. We've had the cough years. We've had highs, we've had lows. We've met in different countries across the world. New York, Geneva, Dubai. We're heading to Hong Kong later this year. It's a hobby that has been greatly appreciated by us, by the people that listen to the show, people that watch us on YouTube. And it's things like this that make it all worthwhile. When you manage to collaborate with good people who are honest, hardworking, and ingenious when it comes to new ideas, it's not the same old, same old. And every day, we're totally mesmerised by new technologies and new things that relate to a technology that is hundreds and hundreds of years old. So I just wanted to say that a little bit before we finish up. And that is it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll catch you guys again soon.
Take care.
Take care.